In today's video, I'll be showing you how to get this clean Apple style lyrics animation. This looks crazy on music videos, Instagram edits and visualizers, and honestly works with anything. So I'm gonna show you how to do it. But real quick, I just want to let you know, in my site right now, we're running the early Black Friday buy one get one free sale. So if you add 2 packs or more into your cart, one will be free. And if you add 6 pack, 3 pack will be free. So I guess you get the point. If you want to check it out, the link will be in the description. Best time to invest on some editing packs. But without wasting any more time, let's just get into the video. So in After Effects, you can see I already have the effect made right here. This looks really smooth, as you can see. So this is what I'm showing you. So we're gonna jump into a new comp right here where we only have our 2 clips and start from scratch. So firstly, what I'm gonna do is select up my footage layer and create a gap. So around like something like this, and maybe even more if we need. So around like here. So we have this big chunk right here where we can add that lyrics animation in. But I completely forgot my song layer, so I'm just gonna quickly copy it from here. You don't really need this. Your footage already has song if you are like editing a music video, but I'm doing it because I need an external song, if that makes sense. But yeah, this is the base that we need. Now firstly, what we're gonna do is create a solid right here to indicate the area where we're gonna add our layers in. So we're gonna make a solid and make it to that duration. So trim it accordingly like this, and right here we're gonna add our effects in. But now before we jump into any fancy effects, what we gotta do is pull up our browser real quick right here. And right here I'm gonna firstly pull up the cover art of our song. So for me, I'm using a song from the Yeet album. Let me just pull that up real quick. It's actually called Come and Go. So this is the cover art right here. So I'm just gonna search up Dangerous Summer right here, because that's the EP where the song is from. So I'm gonna search up Dangerous Summer and go into images, and you can even write the artist name if you don't find it. And quickly you can see all of these images. This is the cover right here. So we quickly gonna save it as a image. So right click save and just save it wherever you want. So this is the folder I'm gonna save it into. So we're gonna hit save, and now if you open it up, you can see we have the JPEG of the file. Now quickly we also want the lyrics of the song. So we're gonna go over to all, and Genius is a great website to like find lyrics. So I'm gonna go into here, Danger Summer's lyrics, and go into Come and Go, and you can see all the lyrics are in here. So we can actually use this lyrics to reference our like text and stuff. But if you can't find your song on genius.com, what you can do is listen to the music and hear what it's saying and just type in that. That works well with unreleased songs, or if you are working with music videos. But if you are doing Instagram edits and stuff, you can go with this, also works. But anyways, now we're gonna pull this in the side and jump into After Effects again. And now in After Effects, if I play the song, this is the part right here. I can play it much because I will get copyrighted, but anyways, this is the part where he's saying I hold ya, I told ya. So this is the part right here. Let me pull that up. So this is the part. So we'll be writing down these lyrics right here. But before we do that, we're gonna make a good setup, a good background where we can put our lyrics on. So now let's just start working on that. So firstly, for that, what we're gonna do is go into the Finder and just pull up the JPEG right here into our comp like this, and just trim it according to your duration. So somewhere around like here. And now if we scale it down, you can see our cover is right here. And to give this a curve edges, what I like to do is add something like a roughen edges onto that layer, and just bring up the border size and lower down the fractal influence, and just bring up the sharpness as well. And you can see it creates this really smooth like border effect that like Spotify. And so yeah, really cool reference right here. And I'm gonna scale it down more, so on like here firstly, yeah, somewhere on like there. And then we're gonna duplicate our cover art. Now we'll start working on the background. So for that, we're gonna scale up our cover art after duplicating. Ctrl D to duplicate if you don't already know. Then hit S to bring up the scale. Hit S and bring up the scale. So on like here. So on like here. On like 200 or some. Yes sir. Maybe I'm gonna put it this side. And now from here you can remove the roughen edges. Then the first effect we're gonna add in our background layer will be a turbulent displacement to create that movement in there, and bring up the amount and bring up the size as well, so it creates those like warp effect. And then you're gonna go over to the evolution and hit the stopwatch in there, and put the keyframe at the very front, so at the start, and go over to the end now and just bring it up to 1 cycle. So add the amount 1 right here and make sure the keyframes are at the very last. And now if you play that through, you can see we have this crazy warpy background right here. That's exactly what we want for now. You can actually go crazy with the amounts again, so bring it up more if you don't like it. So I'm like here, and you can see now it is like really warpy, but it is like clipping in the edges. To fix that, what you can do is add like a motion tile and just set it to 200 by 200 in output width and height, and mirror edges and put it before the turbulence displacement real quick, and it will fix the mirrors. And now you can see it looks even crazier. Maybe the amount is too much, so I'm gonna lower it down slightly, so somewhere on like there. Now after we have this base layer, what we're gonna do is add a blur to create that Apple style effect. So add a fastbox blur or any blur that you like. I think fastbox blur is one of the best options, so add a fastbox blur and just bring it up. Bring it up to whatever you like. So I'm like here, looks fine to me. You can bring it up more if you like. So I'm like here. And now if you play the background through, you can see that looks pretty good. But for me, for some reason, the evolution is too much. So I'm just gonna play with the values slightly, so it is a little slower. Yeah, that's way more calm and matches with that Apple Music style right there. Now one more thing what we can do is pre-comp this like the cover rail. So just pre-comp it real quick and adjust the composition duration and hit OK. And then duplicate it by hitting Ctrl D again. And in the background layer, we also gonna add the fastbox blur in here. So I'm gonna add a fastbox blur and bring up the amount right here, and now you can see the difference. Like it adds these type of like glow in the edges. I think it looks pretty cool, especially with the yellow right here, and gives a really cool effect. So yeah, I like to use this with any type of icon and stuff instead of glow. Looks cool. And if you want to enhance it more, you can add something like an exposure and bring it up, and it will act as a glow. But now real quick, I like to make another adjustment layer and put it before our cover layer and the blur layer. You can actually rename all of these, so I'm gonna name it cover layer right here and cover blur. So it is like really simple to understand, and we're gonna name this background. So make sure the adjustment layer are below your cover layer and your cover blur, but above your background layer. And then in here we're gonna add a gradient ramp effect in here, and we're gonna make a ramp something like this using these points, something like this. And then we're gonna go over to where it says the end color and set it to something like a yellowish, because our like cover has a little bit of yellow in the edges. So I like to represent that and use something like this type of yellow. And in the end color, set it to black and then hit OK. Then we're gonna toggle switches and modes, and now we're gonna set this to something like overlay. But if that's too contrasted to you, what you can do is go over to end color and make it something like grayish, so it is on a perfect balance. So I'm doing this to have a perfect balance between the yellow and so it represents our like cover exactly. You can even lower down the opacity of that adjustment layer. This is not really necessary, but I think it adds a little bit of texture in here, as you can see. And of course, make sure to trim it so it doesn't affect our other layers. So trim it right here, and now you can see that looks pretty solid. And even I'm gonna go into our background layer and lower down the opacity a little bit. Now as you can see, our base effect is almost done. Now we're gonna start writing the lyrics right here. So for that, we're gonna go over to Genius real quick. So pull up Genius, and this is the part I want to write down. This is the part I want to animate. So I'm gonna copy this by hitting Command C or Control C on Windows and go back to After Effects real quick. Put this off, and in After Effects we're gonna make a text layer. So right click, hit text, and just paste it right here. And I'm gonna change the font to something like Enter. If you don't know, Enter is the Apple style of fonts. So yeah, you can just download Enter for free and use that to represent that Apple style. For me, I'll be using Enter extra bold. And now if we bring it over here and lower down the size, you can see our like text is done and made according to the lyric. So we're gonna trim it to the duration again. And now to bring your anchor point into the middle, what you can do is use your Option, Command and Function key with the arrow key to bring it in the center. Or if you are in Windows, it's Control Alt plus the Home key. So it brings your anchor point point exactly into the middle. I'm gonna edit this text right here and add a spacing right here, and then go over to properties and manage this accordingly. So something like this, and also don't forget to center the anchor point right here and lower down the size and fit it into the cover. So something like this to start off. So yeah, something like this. Make sure to fit it right there. But now before we start animating this text layer, what we're gonna do is add some text that will be above our like main text and below our main text, as you see in Apple Music. So if I pull up Apple Music real quick and play any of these songs, so let me play this No Secrets by Drake right here, and if we actually like full screen this set, so how I can even do that, man? Wait, give me a minute. Full screen this set, something like this. You can see it pulls up these like lyrics bar right here. So yeah, we're gonna make something similar style. So we're gonna close this right here and we're gonna reference this to create our animation right here. So for that, basically what we gotta do is duplicate this text layer again and put it above, and go into Genius again, or just type out your lyrics that's above it. So I'm just gonna type out this lyrics on the top. So copy this and paste it right here. If it's too long, you can even like shorten it. So yeah, shorten it according to your liking. It doesn't really matter because it will be blurred out. So yeah, just do whatever maybe. Now we're gonna copy it once more by hitting Ctrl D, and now we're gonna drag this before our text. So I'm like here, I'm actually disable my cover layer and the blurred layer so it is like clear to see, something like that. And now we're gonna type out the other lyrics we got. So bring up our browser right here real quick, and right below we're gonna type out this lyrics. So copy this, go into After Effects again, and just type that out, and I'm gonna add a spacing right here. So you can see at the top we have the lyrics, at the bottom we also got the lyrics. So yeah, that's exactly what we need, something like that. But now we're gonna select the bottom one firstly and add a fast box blur in here and bring it up slightly because we're gonna blur it out as Apple Music. So something like that, and also lower down the opacity of it, something like there. And we're gonna copy the opacity value in our top layer as well, which is this, and just paste it right here, and also copy the same fast box blur on that layer as well. So our main text is in the center and focused. Now after all of these, we're gonna turn on our cover layers. So selecting all of these, just put it before our album cover. So our album cover is on top of everything, and now with that we can start animating this. So firstly what we're gonna do is add a null layer. If you don't already know what null object does, it basically just like links with some other layers to like control it. So let me show you how it's done. So trim it, of course, trim it to your duration, and link your cover layer. So both of these cover layers, if I pull up the text, we're gonna link this cover layer and the cover blur into the null right here, and then we're gonna hit P in our keyboard and bring up the position, and we're also gonna bring up the grid. So go over to here, proportional grid. So it brings up this grid right here, which will help us to like guide our animation. Then go over like few frames, so on like here, and we're gonna put it at the side. So on like this, side, using the grid to proportionally balance it. So I'm like here, and then what we're gonna do is ease this keyframe by hitting F9 in our keyboard. Go into the graph and make a simple graph like this, and now if you play the through, you can see that is a pretty smooth graph right there. But if you want it more faster, you can use plugin like Flow to make it easier. So add a graph like this into the Flow so it is more smoother and faster. Yeah, so yeah, if you have Flow, utilize that. You can even make it shorter if you like. So on like here, looks cool to me. Now we're gonna make another null layer. So make another null object, and this will be for our text controls. So you can name it text control to stay organized, and we're gonna name this null4 to cover control. So cover controls right here. Now we're gonna set it and just like basically whip it to our text control, and we of course gonna trim it as well real quick. Trim it and bring up the position. So bring up the position and do the same thing. So we're gonna go over to this keyframes, but this time we're gonna pull it on the other side so it comes into the other side. So on like here, touching the edges, maybe even something like this. Then we're gonna hit F9 again to ease these keyframes, go into the graph and make a similar graph in here. But for me, I'ma just use a flow graph. So now after you got that done, if we play it through, you can see we have this really smooth like Apple style of pull out effect right here, but it doesn't got motion blur. So I'm gonna toggle switch in the modes and real quick turn on the motion blur on all of our layers, selecting all of these, turn it on, so we get the smooth motion blur. But now before we complete our animation with all the zooms and stuff, we want our like main text to animate. So for that, there's many different ways to do it. You can add different animation into your text. For me, I'm gonna go into the effects and presets and actually use my new pack, the text animation presets. If you don't know, I dropped these like few weeks ago, and it is really efficient on creating some text animation. We can use this to add those text animation in here. We got a lot of, as you can see, we got a lot of text animations. As you can see, this is the pack, and you can add any of these. Like all of these are pretty solid, as you can see, looks pretty cool, something like this. Even like commercials, you can see really smooth type of animations for your text. So yeah, you can use any of these to add those text animation, but for me, I'm gonna keep it simple and use something like a come up animation to keep that minimal style in there. You can hit U to bring up the keyframes to like adjust the duration, and I'm gonna spread it afar so it like goes pretty slow, something like that. And now if you play that through, you can see we have this really smooth text animation in just a click. So if you want to check the pack out, the link will be in description. It's completely goated, so yeah, check it out in the description. But yeah, for now that looks good to me, so we're gonna close all of these and finally start adding those camera zooms. So for that, what we're gonna do is firstly make a camera layer. So go over to new and make a camera right here. It can be any millimeter, doesn't really matter. For me, I'm using a 30mm camera. Then hit OK again, and now you can see we have a camera made in our scene. Now what we're gonna do is select all of these layers that like we created throughout this animation, and we're gonna turn it all into 3D by clicking this icon right here. You can see now it is all 3D. And now we can work on our 3D workspace to add that 3D zoom in our scene. Now if we pull up the properties of our camera, you can see we can control the scene using all of these properties, but I highly recommend on using these parameters because it is not really like efficient. Instead, what we're gonna do is create a null that actually controls our camera. So we're gonna go to new, make a new null object again, and we're gonna name it camera control 1 right here. And now we're gonna select this camera and parent it to that null layer, and make sure you also turn on the 3D on that null layer so it also controls it in 3D workspace. Then now firstly what we're gonna do is bring up the position, hit the stopwatch in there, bring up the scale, hit the stopwatch in there, and bring up the rotation and hit the stopwatch in all of these, all three of these. If you don't know, P to bring up position, S to bring up scale, and R to bring up rotation. But now we're gonna hit U to bring up all of our keyframe together, and we're gonna put it around like here, so somewhere around like here in the starting, so maybe something like this, and go over to end, so around like here, and then we're gonna zoom it in by using the last values in the position. So these last values actually controls the zoom, so we're gonna zoom it in using the position, and also use our first value to control it horizontally, so somewhere around like there. And lastly, we're gonna use our rotations to add a tilt in there, so something like this and something like this, and also play with the position to get something that you like, so on like here, somewhere on like that. And if your adjustment layer cuts off like this in the edges, just bring up the size of the adjustment layer and it should fix it. And now you can see we have this really cool like zoom animation in 3D space. You can now easy ease all of these keyframes, so hit F9 to easy ease real quick and go into graph of each of these. So select those keyframes that you used and go into graph, and make sure you're in speed graph and select these dials right here and make a graph like this, or if you have flow, I highly recommend using flow right here, but for me I'm gonna do it manually so everyone can follow along. Maybe we're gonna make the zoom at the starting, so we're gonna put it something like this, and even something like this right here. So yeah, you can play with the graph and get it to something that you like. For me, I think this works good, so I'm gonna go something like there. And now if we play our animation through, you can see our zoom is looking pretty good right there. That looks super solid for me. And actually I'm going into this text layer and lower down the opacity more, so somewhere around like there, so it focuses into our main text more. Lower the another one down as well. And also in our main text you can add something like a glow, any glow that you like. For me optical glow works the best, so I'm gonna add a optical glow and bring up the size and set it to unmold and lower down the amount somewhere like that, and lower down the size more, so yeah, somewhere like that. And now if you play that through, you can see that looks pretty good. If you even like, you can add something like a drop shadow to like make it visible more. Yeah, that looks good to me, so I'm gonna keep the drop shadow as well. But now to finish it all off, we're gonna add some really cool final touches. So firstly what I'm going to do is trim our camera layer and our null layer to the duration, and then select all of these layers. So all of these layers we created throughout, select all of these, and we're going to pre-comp it real quick into its own layer, hit OK. So it is organized and we have all of our effect into this single pre-comp. And if you want to customize it, just go into the pre-comp and you can see our animation is right there. And now to blend it with the footage and to finish it all off, what I like to do is create an adjustment layer on top. So we're gonna go over to new and go over to adjustment layer, and right here I like to add some kind of transition for it. For that I'm gonna use my another new pack that I drew a few weeks ago, the warps and wiggles. If you don't already know, this pack is super dope to add those crazy warps and wiggles, and I feel like this warps and wiggles would go really cool with this effect. So yeah, I'm gonna just mess around with the pack real quick. So you can open up this pack and use any of it basically. Zoom outs are really cool. If you line up the keyframes, zoom outs can add these really smooth zoom outs like that. But for me at the starting, I want something like impactful, something like a shake. So for that I'm gonna use something like a horizontal wipe for that. And if I line up the keyframe right here, you'll see the magic. And now if you play that through, you can see we have this really cool wipe. It also looks like a shake, but it is also a warp. So yeah, I really love this one, so I'm gonna use this one to transition into our like lyrics. Looks really hard. And to end it off at the end, I'm gonna use the zoom out as I said. So we're gonna make another layer, adjustment layer, and for that you can mess around with all of these, but as I said, I'm gonna use zoom out because it is really dope. And just like line up the keyframe properly. And then now if you play that through, you can see we have this smooth zoom out with it. And now if you play that through, you can see we are almost done. But at the end, let me add some camera movements. For that I think I'm quickly make another null object, because I like to add a zoom out in the null object itself as well. So I'm gonna make a null object and connect our camera control 1 into a new null object and call it something like a camera control 2 right here. Then we can use this to like create a zoom out real quick, so something like this. And at the end we're just gonna zoom it out, so something like this, and center it as well. Maybe this is too extreme, so somewhere on like here, yeah, somewhere according to this. And also some rotation keyframe so it wipes out. And then selecting those keyframes, we're gonna make a out graph into our flow. So I'm gonna use a graph like this into our flow and hit apply. And now if I play that through, you can see we have this like really cool wipe at the end. I think it will help with the movement. So if we go back into our main comp, you can see our animation doesn't stand still and zooms out like that, which enhances our zoom much more, I feel like. So yeah, little tweaks like that can make your effect looks way better. So yeah, you can go ahead and add more effects into this and add your own style. But for me, I think that looks super cool. So I'm gonna leave it right here. But yeah, this was a long recording, bro. My throat is already hurting, like I can't speak much, and I was like screaming throughout the video, so my throat is kind of like cooked. But anyways, if you like this video, please consider hitting the like button, because I really appreciate it, and it motivates me a lot to create videos like this for y'all. And also while down there, consider subscribing, because I keep dropping shots like these for y'all and y'all don't want to miss out. But till next time, peace.